When most people die, their sins, secrets, and hatefulness are buried along with them. But what happens when someone dies in a truly terrible way? Does their soul seek revenge? Or can it rest in peace? In the strange case of Carl Pruitt, it appears that the spirit can do just as much harm as the living body. The tale begins back in June 1938, Pulaski County, Kentucky. Carl Pruitt, a 21-year-old carpenter, went home early from work one day. He expected, as most married men of that time would, to find his beloved wife in the kitchen cooking him something to eat. When young Carl got home, however, the kitchen was oddly quiet. Where was his wife? He began looking for her. When he opened their bedroom door, he got the shock of his life. His wife was in bed with another man. Carl flew into a murderous rage and, while screaming and yelling, grabbed a rusty chain and attacked his unfaithful bride. In the chaos, the unknown lover managed to escape out of an open window, avoiding his certain death. Mrs. Pruitt, on the other hand, was not so lucky. Carl strangled her to death with the chain. Regaining his senses and realizing what he'd done, Carl picked up a pistol and took his own life. When it came time for his burial, Mrs. Pruitt's aggrieved family refused to allow him to be buried in the same cemetery as his wife. They demanded he be buried far away, so his body was buried in a cemetery in another town. If there's no life after death, our tale would end here. However, there's much more to come. The murder-suicide of the Pruitts jolted Pulaski County to its core. People talked and gossiped, like most townsfolk will under such bizarre circumstances. This is where things get weird. Shortly after burial, Carl Pruitt's gravestone attracted attention because of some odd discolored circles appearing on it. There was no obvious explanation, so people didn't think a lot of it until the circles began to intertwine and form what appeared to be links of a chain. This shocked the community, and everyone considered the gravestone to be cursed by the ghost of Carl Pruitt. As word spread, this strange spectacle drew curious onlookers in droves. It also attracted the attention of a group of young local men who considered themselves to be connoisseurs of the macabre. They had been interested in morbid and dark things since boyhood, so they decided to ride their bikes out to the cemetery to check out the gravesite for themselves. One of the young men, James Collins, boasted about how he wasn't afraid of any ghost, and threw a large rock at the gravestone to prove his fearlessness to his buddies. The rock hit Pruitt's gravestone, and a piece of the gravestone broke off. The boys laughed and jeered, and seemed delighted that they didn't see anything else happening, so they left shortly thereafter. On his way home, Collins appeared to have somehow lost control of his bike and slammed into a tree. When he was found, the chain on his bike had come loose from the sprocket and was wound around his neck. Although the boys saw the rock take a chunk of granite off the gravestone, it was unaltered and whole upon later inspection. Again, The community was aghast, swearing that the gravesite was haunted by the ghost of Carl Pruitt, who the community had now nicknamed the Chain Strangler. Collins appeared to have incited his wrath by vandalizing his gravestone. A few days later, after Collins's funeral, his mother was out of her mind with anger and grief at the loss of her son. Like most of the community, she blamed the ghost of Carl Pruitt for James's death. Since she couldn't take out her anger on Pruitt himself, she took an old axe to the cemetery and proceeded to hack wildly at the gravestone, with chunks of granite flying everywhere. The very next day, Mrs. Collins was in her yard hanging up laundry on the clothesline. Nobody knows exactly what happened, but she appeared to trip, getting tangled up in the clothesline, which wrapped around her neck, ultimately suffocating her. By now, the town was in a tizzy. They felt that the Chain Strangler would curse anyone who vandalizes his grave. When people went to see the damage Mrs. Collins inflicted on the gravestone, they were shocked to see that the gravestone was once again intact. The axe was later found, however, badly dented and covered in granite dust. Word about Carl Pruitt and his curse continued to spread like wildfire throughout the neighboring communities. However, there were people foolish enough to tempt fate and try to desecrate his gravesite. One was a farmer who happened to be riding past the cemetery in a horse-drawn carriage with his family. Knowing the rumors of the vengeful ghost only prompted the farmer to pull out a pistol in a flood of bravado and fire off a shot at the gravestone. The bullet hit the stone, and pieces of it went flying. The man, thinking he was really brave for taunting the ghost, should have anticipated what happened next. The echo of gunfire and resulting flying debris spooked his horses, and they panicked, running at full bore. The farmer's family exercised better sense and jumped out of the carriage to safety. The farmer, however, in trying to calm the horses, only made them panic more, overturning the carriage. The farmer was found dead, with the reins tangled around his neck. And, yet again, inspection revealed that the Chain Strangler's gravestone was unharmed. By then, the town issued warnings to the community to leave the gravesite alone. Nevertheless, there were still people who thought the whole thing was a giant hoax. Two of these skeptics were local police officers, so they went out to the cemetery to check it out for themselves. While at the gravesite, the officers laughed and joked about the absurdity of the curse, and even took selfies and other photos of the area surrounding Pruitt's grave. When nothing seemed to happen, they went back to their car and drove away. According to the surviving officer, who was riding in the passenger seat, the car was followed by a bright orb of light. The driver tried to speed up to lose the orb, but ended up crashing into a fence line. The passenger was thrown from the car, but survived the accident. The driver, however, was nearly decapitated by a chain that was strung between two of the fence posts. Come 1940, most people believed that the cemetery was legitimately haunted, and thus avoided it altogether. But even still, not everyone, naturally. One night, A local man broke into the cemetery and proceeded to vandalize the gravestone with a hammer, sending chunks of granite flying and making so much noise that the nearby residents could hear the commotion. Initially, they chose to ignore it due to not knowing from where the racket was coming, until the sounds of whacking granite were replaced with blood-curdling screams. A group of residents, armed with lanterns, rushed to the cemetery, and they were not entirely surprised at this point by what they saw. Something had frightened the man so badly that he tore off towards the entrance gate and got tangled up in the chain that kept the gates locked. The chain was around his neck, and he was dead. The men went to the gravestone and found it undamaged. After this last death, the town residents decided enough was enough. They started exhuming the graves of their loved ones who were in the cemetery with Pruitt and reinterring them elsewhere. Pruitt's grave was the only one in the cemetery, and in time, nature reclaimed the rest of it. Grass, bushes, and trees began to grow once again. Eventually, in 1958, a strip mining company bought the cemetery and all the surrounding land. Ultimately, it was destroyed entirely. Nobody knows exactly what happened to Carl Pruitt's grave and headstone. It may have been relocated like the others, or it may have been demolished by the bulldozers. Regardless, what we know for certain is that the gravesite and cemetery no longer exist. This supposedly ended the curse once and for all. There's been no further mention of any hauntings or revenge killings from the curse of the Chain Strangler. Interestingly enough, it's difficult to get any factual information about or vital records on Carl Pruitt due to a massive fire in the Pulaski County Courthouse that destroyed many records. The story does live on, of course, through the retelling and reprinting of it. In fact, author Troy Taylor wrote a book about the curse of the Chain Strangler called Beyond the Grave. Through print and media, the tale of Carl Pruitt's vengeful ghost still lives on. My name is Ashley, and thank you so much for watching. We're a group of curious and passionate humans, creating documentary-style content for those who share our curiosity, ask questions, and seek to dig deeper in a world where almost everything isn't quite what it seems. We are Mystery Syndicate. If you like what we do, please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel, leave a comment, and give this video a like. And to be notified when we post new videos, hit that notification bell. Also, check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. For exclusive merchandise and our blog, visit our website at www.mysterysyndicate.com. And for those that wish to support our channel, please visit Mystery Syndicate on Patreon. We have a variety of new patron tiers with tons of great benefits. If you want to see your name on a future video, be sure to check it out. From all of us at Mystery Syndicate, thank you again. We sincerely appreciate your support.